Hello everyone, my name is Ayushi Chaudhary. I'm working as an assistant professor at CDOE in Jaipur National University. Today we are going to dive into a very important lecture series of computer science, that is the theory of computation. So let's begin with understanding of what is theory of computation. Theory of computation is a branch of computer science that deals with the fundamentals of what a computer can or cannot compute, or how efficiently a problem can be solved. So before diving into the series, let's understand what are the learning outcomes. So by the end of this lecture, you will be able to develop a comprehensive understanding of computation fundamental. You'll get to learn the fundamentals of computation, how computation is done, what are the problems that come during the computations. These all will we cover in this lecture. Then we'll explore the historical evolution of theory of computation and its significance. How theory of computation has evolved itself from a simple model like abacus to a very complex model like Turing machine. Then you'll master the core concept of automata, computability, and complexity. These are major branches of theory of computation, and we will understand the whole scenario of these three perspectives for theory of computation. You'll be able to evaluate the contribution of key figures in this field. The people who have contributed in this field will get to know about them. So let's begin. What is theory of computation? So the theory of computation is a branch of computer science and mathematics that focuses on understanding the fundamental principles of computation, the capabilities and limitations of computational model, and the efficiency of the models who are we going to understand about. Okay, so as you can see that you will understand the fundamental principle of computation, how we do a computation on even in a real world life problem or even in computer. So this is how we are going to differentiate the two things. For example, we'll differentiate that what are the things that can be computed, what are the things that cannot be computed even by a computer system or by a human being. If we talk in a general real life problems, then we will take two examples. First scenario is we can count a number of series from 1 to 10, then but we cannot count the number of stars. So these are two scenarios with theory of computation will differentiate into two categories: computability or non computability. Then we have some models, how efficient those models are, or what are their capabilities, or what are their limitations. We'll go through all of this and the efficiency of all those models, or how a problem can be solved in an efficient manner. This is the diagram. As you can see, this is the diagram of an abacus, which is the simplest model of theory of computation, and this is the diagram of Turing machine, which is the complex model in the theory of computation. So it primarily addresses three questions. To understand theory of computation, we need to understand these three questions. And the first question is what can be computed? And that is known as computability theory. So computability theory defines what are the things that can be computed or what are the things that cannot be computed. Then we have is how efficiently can it be computed. So efficiency means, for example, if you need to go from Jaipur to Delhi, you need to think for so many things. Like, okay, so you can even board a train, you can go by a bus, you can take a flight. These are various ways you can use to reach from Jaipur to Delhi. But which is more efficient for you will be deciding it on the basis of two things. First is your time, and the second thing is money. Okay, so these things are going to save your efforts for going to a particular place. So you, on the basis of time and money, you will decide which one is a better way to reach from Jaipur to Delhi. This is what computing is. So how efficiently can be means a problem can be solved using various ways. So which way you are going to use for making it an efficient program, that we will decide in the way the certain program runs. Then what abstract model of computation exists? What are the different models that exist for computing a particular problem, that we will understand in this theory of computation. So by answering all these three questions, theory of computation primarily defines the fundamentals of any problem. So it lays the foundation for many areas of computer science, including compiler designing. So we are using theory of computation in compiler designing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cryptography. Cryptography, you must be aware of cryptography. It is a technique to encrypt or decrypt a data, which you must be using in your WhatsApp. There you read a message that your every message is end-to-end encrypted. That technique is known as cryptography. So these are few areas where theory of computation is used. Now let's understand what are the major branches of theory of computation. So theory of computation has three major branches, which is automata theory, computability theory, and complexity theory. What automata theory do is it studies abstract computing devices. What are the different devices? So what are the different models that are used to compute any problem? They are designed in automata theory, or they can be understood in the automata theory. Then we have is computability theory, which explores what problem can be solved by a computer. So there are many problems that can be solved by a computer, and there are various problems that cannot be solved by a computer system. Even for we have just taken a real life example. To count a number of stars, even computer fails in that area. So there are a lot of things which we need to still make it countable. Next is complexity theory, analyzes the efficiency of computational problems. So how efficient a computational problem is, or how the solution is efficient, that is being checked under this theory of computation. What you must be aware of, time and space complexity. So time or space complexity, for solving any problem, you have two things, time and space complexity, that defines how efficient a program is. Or before writing a program, what we do is we need to make a logic or design an algorithm. After that algorithm, we check that whether this algorithm is efficient or not, then we write a program on the basis of that particular algorithm. So a particular problem can be solved by various ways, and you can use any of them, but you need to take care of time and space and make it a efficient program, so that the computer can run smoothly or fast, or any device we are making that can be run fast or efficiently. So these are basically different branches of theory of computation. Now, the question arises is, why is the theory of computation is important? So, the theory of computation form the basis of writing efficient algorithm that run in computing devices. So, in every computing devices, we are writing a program, and before writing a program, we need to write an algorithm to understand what are the steps we are going to follow to uh, to reach to a particular outcome, or to get an output from from an input. So, theory of computation help in writing efficient algorithms that run in computing devices. So, it does this thing, and therefore it is very important, because what are we doing in computer systems? The more we are applying a good algorithm, the more efficient the computer will work, or the more faster it will work, and our work can be done or completed with a very efficient manner. Next is programming languages and research, programming language research and their development. So basically, uh, development in the research area, development and in the research area of programming language has been done. You must have seen that from the very basic programming language, for example, like C, to now we have made developed so many programming languages like Java, React, all these things. We are developing it day by day to make everything more faster. So it is also important in theory of computation. Then efficient compiler designing and construction. So to design a compiler or construct a compiler, we need theory of computation. So these are basically three important things for which we use theory of computation. Now let's see the historical evolution and its importance. So the field has evolved over decades with contribution from some of the greatest minds. The first person is Alan Turing, who has proposed the Turing machine, a fundamental model for defining computability. So for computability, what we use is Turing machine, and it has been developed by Alan Turing in 1930s. Then we have Alonzo Church, who introduced the lambda calculus, which is equivalent to Turing machine only. So it has also made a model which is for lambda calculus, and it is also similar like Turing machine. Then during 1950s to 1970s, automata theory and complexity theory were formalized. So we have formalized these two theories during the period of 1950s and 1970s. Now we have come to modern day application, like TOC plays a crucial role in cryptography, AI and optimization technique. So there is a broad area where theory of computation is playing an important role in the normal human life. Okay, so before getting into the depth, let's understand what is a program, what is an algorithm, and what is a data structure. So basically, program is a way. So basically, algorithm is a step-by-step instruction to solve a problem. Before solving a problem, we need a step-by-step follow-up instruction so that the problem can be solved exactly in the same way it has been defined. Then a data structure is a specialized format for organizing, managing and storing data efficiently. So we use data structure for managing data efficiently and making it work by organizing and managing the data. So this is a diagram of algorithm. Here you can see that we have a sequence of steps which we are going to follow, and all these algorithms are converted into a programming language, or we write a program using the help of algorithms, and then we make different programming language and implement into applications so that we can use it. First, let's understand what is an algorithm and what is a data structure. So algorithm is a step-by-step instruction to solve a problem. To solve a problem, we need a step-by-step solution. For example, if you want to make a tea, you will have to follow some steps. You will first use a gas stove, and then you will put water.
कोई नहीं कंटिन्यू कर फाइन यहाँ से वीडियो कंटिन्यू हो जाएगा तेरा टाइम अभी तक हो गया है मैं स्टॉप वॉच लगा के चलो 10 मिनट हो गया है
ठीक है मैं अभी दोबारा से एक बार और ठीक है
हाँ अब यहाँ से कंटिन्यू कर यहाँ से हम ब्रेक करवा देंगे फोटो ले लेंगे ठीक है कंटिन्यू
So let's define what is an algorithm. An algorithm is a step-by-step instruction to solve a problem. As you can see in the diagram, an algorithm is a step-by-step follow-up. We have a starting point, then we can read a particular data, then we have a sequence, a decision tree, then we can follow up. If the decision tree is false, what we are going to do in the next step, then if it is true, then what we are going to do in the next step. So every step has been written in the algorithm, and you generally, with the help of an algorithm, create or write a program. Then we have a data structure. So if we have a data, then we need to store it, we need to manage it, and for that we generally use a data structure. So this is how a program is being written into a computer system for making various applications. So this is the common types of data structure, which can be divided into two parts, linear and non-linear. Linear could be static or dynamic, or static data structure are array, and dynamic data structure are queue, stack and linked list. And then in non-linear we have tree and graph. You must all have understood these kind of concept in data structure. So we are further moving into theory of computation. So before seeing to any other thing, let's start with computational process. What is a computational process? So how do you compute a thing? Okay, for example, if you want to compute sum of these 6 digit what we are going to do is we are going to take the first number and then we'll sum it up with the next number and then store the sum into a variable. Then again we'll take another number and then we'll sum it up and then again store it in a different variable. And exactly the same way we are going to follow the steps. This is known as a computational process. So how you are going to solve a problem, what is the procedure inside it, is known as computational process. Now, so execution of algorithm in computational model is known as computational process. So we have an algorithm, we will be making a program for it and then we'll run it on a computer system and then we will check whether it is running smoothly or not. So some examples are Turing machine, finite automata, which focus on sequence and structure of operation. So these are two models of theory of computation which basically either accept or reject a particular string given as input in a computer device. Now, before understanding what are the different models of computation, let's first understand what is the formal language and grammars. Okay, so just like in English language, what we have is a language and then a grammar that defines a set of rules which is going to check whether whatever the sentence is either correct or not. Exactly the same way in programming, for writing different programming languages, we have different set of syntax and semantics which are need to be understood before writing a program. So basically formal languages and grammar are used to define programming languages and their syntax. So how to write a program in which compiler or how to write a syntax or what is going to be the syntax for that particular program, that all is being understood in the formal language and grammar. Exactly the same way we have so many types of grammar like regular language, context language, context sensitive language, recursive and enumerable language. These are few types of grammar languages which are there in the theory of computation and we solve every problem using of these languages only. And these are the models which are used to solve these problems or check the grammar for these languages. So these are computational models which are going to solve check whether this language is correct or not. So this is the whole working of theory of computation, or these are different models helps theory of different languages to define how to write a particular program. So these are some grammars. Regular grammar, then we have context free grammar, context sensitive grammar, unrestricted grammar. So this is the least complex grammar. Then we have context free grammar which is much more complex. Then we have, so the type is being increased and the complexity will also increase accordingly. So every regular grammar is a subset of context free grammar, which is a subset of context sensitive grammar, and which is a subset of unrestricted grammar. So this is how we define languages and we check all the languages under some subsets. For example, a regular language can be checked by a context-free grammar as well. A context-free grammar can be checked by a context-sensitive language using the different models which are being which are being defined for different type of grammar or language. This is known as Chomsky hierarchy. Now let's understand what is automata theory. So automata theory has these computational models which compute different languages and check their grammar so that they can accept the particular string in a predefined format. For example, you have a string So first, what we will do, we are going to give it to a finite automata, a computational model, and the computational model will process this particular string and will tell whether it could be accepted by a finite automata or not. So this is being done using the finite automata. A finite automata is used in lexical analysis, that is done for compiler designing, then text searching in, like for when we are writing HTML program or something like that, then we use text searching. For push down automata, we have some applications in parsing and syntax analysis, which is again done in compiler designing. Then for Turing machine, we have general model of computation where we can define computability. So for defining computability, we use Turing machines. So this is a diagram of model. This is a model of push down automata. Here we have some finite control symbolized as sigma, and we have a stack, a memory. In finite automata, we don't have any memory. But in push down automata, we have a memory which can store the previous and the next upcoming strings and have some information about both of them. Then in Turing machine is much better. It can even check all the models in itself. Like we can run so many models in Turing machine. And this is, for example, as you can see that there are finite controls, and there are so many finite control as given here. And we have input and output tape symbols, read write head from where it has been started, or tape is divided into cell of infinite length. So there is a memory of infinite length in Turing machine. Now you must have gained the knowledge of what is automata theory. Now we will understand what is computability theory. So computability theory is divided into two parts, that is decidable versus undecidable. So any problem that can be solved by any algorithm is called decidable problem. So if there exists an algorithm for a problem, then that is known as decidable. Or the problem that can be solved in a polynomial time are known as tractable or easy problems. Then problems that can be solved but for which no polynomial time solution exists are called intractable or hard problems. Fine. Then there are problems that cannot be solved in any amount of time are called undecidable problem. So these are few sets of problems which are either decidable or undecidable. Let's see the basic difference between decidable and undecidable problems. So if we talk about the definition, problems that can be solved by an algorithm, or there exists a algorithm for a problem that provides you a correct answer, that is known as a, and that too in a finite time, is known as decidable problem. And problem where no algorithm can give a solution for all possible cases, that is known as undecidable problem. In decidable problem, it always is solvable by a step-by-step process which is known as algorithm. And here in undecidable problem, the problem cannot be solved for all input using a single algorithm. That means for different inputs we might need different algorithm. So it cannot solve a single problem using a single algorithm. For decidable problems, there is an algorithm that works for every input and always finishes with an answer. But there is no algorithm that can solve problem for every input in undecidable problem. So basically it means that there does not exist any algorithm for a particular problem, and that is why they are known as undecidable problems. If we talk about the examples, like problem like checking a number if a number is even or odd, or if a string belongs to a regular language, like finding a match in a search, these are few examples of decidable problem. You must have seen that we can solve these problems. Like you can write a program for finding whether a number is even or not, prime or not, palindrome or not. So these are few things you must have written program for. And then there, or if a string belongs to a regular language, we just have understood that there are regular languages for which grammar does exist, and model, we have computational model that checks whether that language is correct or not. So this is also an example of decidable problem. Then we have some undecidable problem, that is a halting problem, where you cannot always tell if a program will finish running or run forever. So there may be some problems for which there are infinite loops. They can go end up into an infinite loop. There has no ending for that particular algorithm. Then we have is decision procedure. There's a clear method of always to there is a clear, means there must exist a way to reach to a particular problem, but in undecidable problems there is no guarantee that there exists a problem, there exists a solution for the problems we have. Okay. This is a Chomsky hierarchy we just have seen in the above diagram. This is so this is a finite language. Then we have regular language, which is being solved with the help of finite automata. Then we have context free language, which is solved by push down automata. Then we have context free, this is deterministic and this is non-deterministic context free language. Then we have context sensitive language, for which linear bounded automata, a computational model, does exist to solve a particular kind of problem. For example, this kind of problem, we have LBA to check whether this problem is correct or not, or cannot be solved, or can be solved. Then we have recursive language, and then we have recursively enumerable language that has been solved by the help of Turing machine. So this is a undecidable problem. The halting problem is an undecidable problem, and other than that, every problem is a decidable problem, for which there exist so many computational models to check whether that program or the problem can be computed efficiently or not. Now, after understanding computability theory, automata theory, we have come to complexity theory. As we have understood that for complexity theory, we have time and space complexity. For every program, we have so many solutions, and from which we just use a single solution to solve a particular problem, which is the best case scenario. So we have 2-3 scenarios: the worst case scenario, average, and the best case scenario. So these are 3 scenarios for which we calculate time and space complexity and decide which problem is better than the other one. So for every problem, we design new solutions so that we can, the computer or the system we are making the program for can be made much better or fast or efficient. So what complexity theory does is it focuses on classifying the problems based on resource usage, that is a space complexity. Fine. So major complexity classes are polynomial time, which is problem solvable efficiently. So polynomial time means those problems which are solved efficiently and there exists a solution for that. Then we have is non-deterministic polynomial problem with verifiable solutions. So there exists a solution for that, but it may not be an efficient program. There may not be an efficient algorithm for that particular problem. So this is known as non-deterministic polynomial solution. Then we have NP complete and NP hard, non-deterministic polynomial complete or non-deterministic polynomial hard, which are for those problems which cannot be or the most hard problem that are still needs to be decide that whether they can be solved or not. For example, a P versus NP is a NP hard problem that is still not decided, is not, there does not exist any solution to define the difference between these two things. So this is a diagram. So for polynomial time there must exist a non-deterministic polynomial time, or maybe for NP hard problem there could be few problems which are NP complete, and there are so many problems which are NP hard that there does not exist any solution for those problems. So we have solutions, we may have solution, but that could not be efficient. We may have a solution, but there need to be decided with that which program is going to be more efficient, and there exist some problems which are very difficult to solve. So this is how we have categorized the complexity theory into major classes. Now let's again talk about few people who have contributed their who have contributed them for designing these models. So first we have is Alan Turing, who have developed the Turing machine, the foundation of computability. Then we have Alonzo Church, who have introduced lambda calculus, which is equivalent to Turing machine. Then we have von Neumann, you must have heard his name. He has designed the computational architecture. Then we have Stephen Cook, who have introduced the concept of NP completeness. So these are few people who have contributed their hard work for making TOC successful. Now let's talk about few application of theory of computation. Theory of computation is used in so many things in computer system. For example, they are used for designing compiler, for writing different programming languages, in artificial intelligence and machine learning, where machine learns using some facts and data. Then we have cryptography and cyber security, which is a very important key feature for any computer system to have a great security system for their devices. Then we use theory of computation for optimizing algorithms and database query processing. So these are few applications of theory of computation, and they are very important for computer system designing. And this whole is a theory of computation procedure where we have regular grammar, context-free language, polynomial time, non-polynomial time, equivalence of P space and NP space, exponential time, exponential space for time and space complexity. Then we have decidable or undecidable problem. Then we have few problems which can be recognized or cannot be recognized. So after completing this whole subject, after completing this particular set of theory of computation, we here are few key takeaways that you must have understood from this whole concept. First is the definition of theory of computation. That means theory of computation explores what problem can be solved and how efficiently they can be solved by a computer system. Then you have understood the automata theory, which helps in modeling different computational processes. Then you must have understood the computability theory, which defines what problems are solvable using an algorithm. Then we have complexity theory, which is categorized problem based on time and space complexity. Then we have gone through real world applications, which include compilers, cryptography, and AI, and optimization problem. So even we have understood what are the P versus NP problems that all have remained one of the most significant open problem in computer science that has not yet been solved. So this is the whole key takeaway of this lecture, and we will learn more about theory of computation in the upcoming lecture. Thank you so much for your time and effort.